Welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. I am Brigham Blackham, your success story strategist, and I am so thankful to have Sharon Lechter here. She's the author of multiple books, like 14 plus books, but the one you most likely know about is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Outwitting the Devil is one I recently read. I absolutely loved it, blew my mind. She is a phenomenal entrepreneur. She's got a laundry list of accolades, but today, I want to actually talk about why not become an authority from whatever place you are in your business as an entrepreneur, as a real estate investor. We want to figure out how can you not just become an expert, but become the authority. And I love how she talks about this. She's got such a spice of life. And I'm so grateful to have you on the call today, Sharon. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, Ruben. Thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be with you and your incredible team. Your audience is wonderful.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, let's start off with this. While I was reading 3 Feet from Gold, and I've read, Think and Grow Rich, there is this idea of a letter of recommendation from somebody. And one of the things that stuck out to me while I was reading those books was how that opens doors. So as a beginning person, doing your best to get your foot in the door, making sure that you're building authenticity and building your credibility. What types of letters of recommendation have you been able to receive? And how did that help you write the 3 Foot from Gold book?
Well, I teach the power of association, Brigham, and that's been a part of my success from the very beginning of my business. When I started the kids talking book industry, we had a new technology back in the 80s when kids did not have technology. And so we found the way of going in and getting licensing deals with Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street. So that power of association is very, very important. And that was demonstrated in 3 Feet from Gold and in Think and Grow Rich when Andrew Carnegie introduced Napoleon Hill to all of his rich friends. And so it's still alive and well today. You've heard phrases like your net worth is equal to your net work, right? And the power of association is alive and well, even stronger today than ever before. And part of it is you do have to earn the right. And that's a lot of people think, I'm just going to go sit and get somebody's recommendation. Well, you need to earn the right. We are all experts. Nobody's had your successes or your learning opportunities. We want you to go from being an expert to becoming the expert to becoming the authority. And we're living in a world where you try to do it all on your own, takes forever, and the market's going to pass you by. And that's why it's so important to have those associations, the right member on your teams, members who are strong where you are weak, the right mentor. So those mentors can write the letters of recommendation for you, or they introduce you to their other friends.
Yeah.
So it elevates you. One of the things we talk about, you mentioned Outwitting the Devil and getting away out of the fear, is the power of your environment. So who are you hanging out with? Who are you spending time with? And if they are all at the same level or below you economically, you're probably not getting challenged. You need to put yourself in the right environment to challenge you, to continue lifelong learning, to continue experiencing new things.
Ooh, that was a beautiful summary of the importance of proximity to power. Proximity is so important with everything you do in business. And I thought that was a great idea. You take your mentors and they will introduce you to the right people. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Power of association is so powerful. Now, when you are thinking about creating authority as a beginner, let's start where everybody starts. We all start in the beginning. What have you done to be able to recognize your expertise, expand that expertise so that you can become the authority, not just an authority, and then not just become an expert, become the expert all the way up to that becoming the authority, like you said?
Well, a lot of people are good at a lot of things, master of none, right? And so it's really important for you to identify what your talent is. Now, I have in the book 3 Feet from Gold that you mentioned, I introduced the personal success equation.
Yes.
The audience can find personalsuccessequation.com. I have a small ebook workbook there, and it really does encapsulate your question, the answer to your question, because it starts with P plus T, your passion and your talent. Now, your passion, you've heard the phrase, love what you do what you love. Well, my passion came from anger that we were teaching people about money in school. So my passion I combined with my talent, years as a CPA, years in publishing. But most of us stop there thinking we have to do everything on our own. But true success comes from combining your passion and your talent with the right associations, the right people to speed your way, add momentum to what you're doing, people that are experts where you're weak, as I said. And then times A, taking action. How many times do we know what we're supposed to do? We just don't do it. Yeah. And then all of it wrapped with a big plus F, faith. Faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith that it's needed and necessary, and faith that you will succeed. Well, that formula works for everyone. Yeah. And most of us, the vast majority of us, that F is not faith, it's fear. We self-sabotage. We hold ourselves back. We know we should do something, we just don't do it. And so when I work with high-level clients, and I do this with every interview as well, it's usually the power of association and the self-confidence that need the most work. And that power of association, if you get the right people around you and you have a bad day, they won't let you stay down too long. And so they go hand in hand. And so I always challenge people to think about who you're spending your time with. What's your environment? Do you need to add some new people that will challenge you, that will help you elevate to the next level?
Beautiful. Because when you associate with those people that push your mindset, skill set, and tool set to the next level, suddenly you feel like you can do it rather than feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can. I think that's a beautiful way to think about it.
And plus, Brigham, when you are starting to make a move, you're expanding your authority. The people that you've been hanging around with might feel threatened.
Yeah.
And their fear, they try to hold you back. And I go, that's when you have to like act in grace up here, and realize that it's not that they're negative towards you. It's just they themselves are not doing anything. So they're trying to make themselves more comfortable by holding you back. And so put a little cone of protection on and keep moving forward. And as you create success in your life, they'll probably become a great cheerleader for you, but they have to get past their own fear first.
Wow. And this reminds me of the analogy of the crabs in a bucket. You know, sometimes if you're in a negative association, they will just be pulling you down. And when you have people that are encouraging you, drastically different experience. So thank you for that reminder. One thing that I took away from your 3 Foot from Gold book was the importance of opposition and how having the opposition is actually for your benefit. I thought this was an interesting concept because if we don't have challenges, we don't have these things that push us to that next level, we stay where we're at. So can you talk about opposition and how that shows up in your own life, those challenges, and how you don't quit 3 Feet from Gold?
Well, I love that question because most of us, I think it's almost human nature. We want to be comfortable, right? So we stay in our comfort zone. And I challenge people everywhere I go. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
I love that question. It's so good.
The last time you did something for the first time, because, and I turned 70 in January, but I still challenge myself to experience new things, to do new things, because that's how we stay young. That's how we stay vibrant. That's how we learn. And if we stay in our comfort zone, we miss the opportunities. And so when you talk about opposition, I like to use the word obstacle because an opposition is an obstacle. So let's turn that obstacle into an opportunity. Yeah. Because successful businesses do one of two things: solve a problem or serve a need. Well, that obstacle is a problem. And so solve it, and it turns into an opportunity. And we have a few problems and a few needs in the world today. So now is the time to start saying, where's your passion? What can you do? What you're good at? How can you create a solution to one of the problems out there?
Beautiful. As entrepreneurs, this makes me think that we're one of the weird people in the world that pray for bigger problems. We want to solve the most dynamic challenges that we can. And one of the things that's impressed me about your career is just how well you've been able to serve not just a few people, but literally millions. You sold millions of copies of books. When you are identifying your problem that you want to solve and that you feel you're the authority to solve, how do you put blinders on the other problems so you can focus in on becoming that authority?
Well, I think that comes the first step that is I outlined in Outwitting the Devil is definiteness of purpose. In Think and Grow Rich, it was called Burning Desire. Okay. It is understanding what your mission on earth is. All right. I grew up in a house where I learned about money. We talked about it. It wasn't when I got into the real world, I realized what a gift that was to me and how few people learn about money. And then it was years later when my oldest son went off to college and got into credit card debt. I was devastated. I was mad at him, but I was more mad at myself. And that was December of 1992, Brigham. And that's the day, that is the day that I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education, financial literacy. And I'm as passionate about it today as I was back then, because I know I have knowledge and I have a gift that I can help people understand how to get away from the employee mentality, exchanging time for money, understand the importance of buying, building, and creating income producing assets. That is my favorite word on earth, assets. And assets are sexy. And I say that older you get, the sexier they become. And that I believe that is my unique position. Most people talk about passive income, getting cash flow. I want to talk about the asset. Let's focus on the asset, because the asset generates the passive income and the cash flow.
I love that. So when you are looking as a beginner, we've all got authority in certain ways, experiences in different ways, that if we put it together into the right asset, we could generate revenue. What are ways in the beginning that you were able to take some of your experiences, your stories, and put them in such a way that you created a digital asset or you created a book that was able to actually generate revenue? How'd you do that in the beginning?
Well, in many different ways. If we're talking about books, I started the talking children's book industry, the books that had the sound strips down the side with the inventor. And I helped him take that to a global brand, again, by doing licensing deals with Disney, Warner Brothers, because there was a time in the 1987, kids didn't have electronics. I know it's hard to imagine a day that kids didn't have electronics, but it was that way back then. And so we said, how can we get parents to trust us? And that was by doing these powers of association. And so that's when I really understood that it's so much easier to make a big impact when you use a tool as opposed to one-on-one. All right. And I've been a writer all my life, but my expertise was in accounting and math. But my 8th grade English teacher told me I'd be a famous writer. I thought she was crazy, but it just evolved into this. And then when my son had got into credit card debt, I started working with school systems to bring financial education into the schools. And then to see the ability to impact more people. And this was before Amazon, before the internet. So we didn't have the internet. I couldn't go online and do what we're doing right here. So the only way to get to people was through bookstores, all right, or through magazines, through television, radio. And so that was, my goal was to impact as many people as I could. And when I met Robert Kiyosaki, he'd gone to my husband for some legal advice about patenting the board game cash flow. And I met him at a beta test and I said, this is what I'm teaching. This is a great tool. And so I volunteered to help him commercialize it because I had the experience with a talking book company. And in the process, he told me he wanted to charge $200 for it. And 1996, that was pretty pricey. And I said, well, maybe you should write a brochure on the philosophy. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. And we wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most people don't know that Rich Dad, Poor Dad was actually written as a brochure to sell the board game Cash Flow. We never thought we were going to be a publishing company. And all of a sudden, people wanted more. So we said, we'll do a trilogy. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. Okay, we're done. Nope. So over the 10 years, we were partners. We wrote 15 books together. And I launched a second series called Rich Dad Advisors. So we actually... we're much more than a game company. We became a publishing company, and we did audio products, we did infomercials, but we truly did build the largest personal finance brand in the world because we used tools. People could access the books without us having to be present. We were the #1 best-selling book in Brazil, and neither one of us had ever been there. So it just all over the world. We ended up in 110 countries and 51 languages. And so and today the power of intellectual property is stronger than ever. 40 years ago, the valuation of Fortune 500 companies were 85% bricks and mortar physical assets, 15% intangible. Today, it's more than flipped. Over 90% of the valuation of Fortune 500 companies is intangible. And that's called intellectual property. You know, the brand, the value of the brand. So you think about Airbnb, large hospitality company, owns no hotels. Uber, large transportation company, owns no cars. Amazon, right? So you just think about the powerhouses today and realize that it allows us a more level playing field. It's easier for little guys to compete with the big guys because we have this beautiful thing called the internet.
Wow. And intellectual property, I think that is where you take a business from something that kind of stays at your own level to be able to leverage it. That's that tool you're talking about. And in your cash flow quadrant book, I love the way you talk about how you break free from, always trading your time for dollars to be able to leverage a system. Can you talk about some of the ways you've been able to do that, even in your speaking career? Because I'm an emerging speaker. I would love to hear, what can you do to actually create some of those digital assets or create those tools to be able to trademark yourself and to build that brand?
Well, there's the obvious ones, like write a book, create an online program, which I've done both of. I've got multiple programs and 28 books. So that's still something that is alive and well, still doing that. But you also have the opportunity to create a system. You use the word systems. One of my also a favorite word of mine, because you can have a successful business, but is it sustainable and scalable? It's only sustainable and scalable if you have documented systems that will allow someone else to come in. And then you can take what you've created and license it to other people. That's how we grew Rich Dad. I didn't go to 110 countries. Companies in those countries came to us saying, we want to help spread the word. And so having something that can be duplicated, something that can be licensed to someone else, and have quality control and all that good stuff, but that allows you to truly scale and grow your impact. If I have Play Big Movement, a private Facebook group, but it's about being #1 in your field, being that authority you're talking about, living your legacy. Because Brigham, your legacy is not when you die. It's you create your legacy every single day with every heart you touch. And creating maximum impact. So if you truly want to create maximum impact, you will duplicate yourself. You will duplicate your knowledge through acts in a way that people can access it 24/7, no matter where they live, and even in the language they want. And so it's so important to understand the power of intellectual property in today's world.
Wow. Phenomenal. So if I understand this concept with the way you're delivering it to me and the way I'm seeing it, don't just get your system down so that you understand it. You really want to make sure that you have put your standard operating procedures in a way that you can license it and let others step into those roles and start generating revenue, start generating income. And then your impact is not completely tied to what you can do. It's tied to what that system can do for those other people. Did I get that right?
That was very well said. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, when you are organizing events or you are connecting with other speakers, networking, what are some ways that you've been able to go and book more stages? What are ways that you've been able to connect with those people that are like the linchpins of your career? What have you done to do that?
Well, I think part of it is you have to know when to say no. We're very guarded about what stages I go on. And again, that's power of association, power of who else is on the stage and what the organization is. And so it's really important to know your own core values and stick to them and be consistent. And as you elevate your own authority, that's what I talk about. How do you know you're an authority and not just an expert? Is when people start calling you, right? That tells you you've become the authority. And one of the ways to get from expert to authority is start interviewing other authorities in your field. And all of a sudden you're interviewing them, and all of a sudden you're seen alongside them. And you elevate your authority by doing that. So you're doing it with all these interviews that you're doing on your Leveling Up podcast. So you elevate yourself by highlighting other experts and authorities.
I love that. One of the things that sticks out to me with being a speaker is as you solve more valuable problems and you can compact it into, I want to say, a codified manner, a simple system that others can follow, suddenly your message doesn't have to only come from your mouth. It can start to come from other people's mouths because they understand it, they consume the information, and then they're able to do something without you having to be present. So what are some of the ways you've been able to codify your stories or to take some of the experiences that you've had and make it so simple that other people can use it without you having to be present?
Well, I mean, the greatest example of that is 28 books, lots of different audio programs. I think I have probably, 7 or 8 online educational programs where I've taken my knowledge and shared it in a way that people can access at the leisure of their own time and schedule so that they can learn from me without me having to be present. I've written college curriculums. I've written school curriculums. I do a lot of speaking, a lot of podcasts where it's recorded, and so it's accessible to communities that they can go back and re-listen to it. So anytime you have a way of participating in something that you know has long legs, you know that you're growing your impact, and that's really an important piece of it. And understanding also where you don't want to have, if there's an organization you're not sure about, it's probably better to not go there because you may not be able to control it. And the contract that you have I have an engagement, in a few weeks, and I won't sign their speaker's contract because it says they own my IP and in perpetuity. That's not going to happen. So, understanding what you're signing and understand what the relationship is very important, and define that up front.
Yeah. And when you look at any contract that you sign, being able to say, I understand this and I agree with it. That's part of why people will go and talk to your husband. I mean, Michael's the authority on intellectual property. So if you're wanting to do that, go talk to him. He's
definitely a gatekeeper. He's definitely a gatekeeper for me. And, my partner, Angela Chapman, she's also the one that if you're not going to get to me if you don't get through the two of them. So
that's fair. Well, one of the things that I love asking people that have been on a lot of interviews is, what is one of the best questions you've ever been asked?
Well, I can tell you the question I get asked the most that I actually don't like to answer.
Okay.
Best question I've ever been asked. I think, people say, what's the highlight of your career? And I always say the next one, because I think one of the biggest things I teach, Brigham, is that you don't look back. Learn from the past, but don't let it define you. So a lot of people ask me, what advice would you give a younger Sharon? Right. And I go, I appreciate the question. I get asked that question a lot. I said, but I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't had all my successes and failures along the way. And so, I kind of like my life, so I'm not going to give if I had a piece of advice, it would be, you can do anything you want. And that's what my dad told me. You can do anything you want if you just work hard enough and you focus on what you want. And too many people focus on, what I should have done, what I could have done, instead of what can I do today to move forward. And so be present and understand that we are all where we are today because of the choices we made before today. If you want something different, something better, something more, start making different choices today. But a lot of people define themselves by the mistakes they've had in the past. I see it a lot, particularly women. We like carry our mistakes like an old sack of potatoes. But I go, a mistake is learning opportunity. A mistake is an occurrence, not a definition. And that is so hard for people to hold on to and understand. I don't know a single successful person, I know a lot of them, that hasn't had a few bloopers along the way. Success is not a straight line. And it's those bloopers that give you education, on the street education in real life, that you will hopefully not repeat. And so, it's just next, okay, that happened. Now what do I do?
Wow. As a speaker and as an entrepreneur, I feel like you're exactly who I want to be when I grow up. I mean, not necessarily like a wise white woman, but I would like to be that same idea of being able to contribute, write dozens and dozens of books, being able to help people, even if I'm not present. So I just want to say thank you for who you are, what you've done, and what you're continuing to do, because it has made a drastically good impact on me, and I know literally millions of people. What if you could identify one thing gives you cause to pause? This is an expression, wu wei in Chinese. It comes from the Taoist philosophy to be still and to pause and to think. What now gives you pause and lets you think about things that are meaningful to you? Now that you're looking back over an amazing career, what gives you pause to cause, or a cause to pause?
Well, two things. One is when I get mad about something, I usually start another company. And so when COVID started and there was just so much negativity in the world, I started a daily motivational message to try and inject positive and every day into people. And I'm now close to 2,000 messages. And every single day, this message helps people just find that little hope, that little bit of, I'm fabulous. Every one of them, I have them end with, say it with me, I am fabulous, because we have way too much tension, negativity, polarization, and we have to combat that. And so that was my reaction to feeling angst and negativity. So I'm a very proactive person. So that's when I get mad about something, I take a moment and say, okay, Sharon, what can you do about it? And take time to reflect on, okay, what can I do? Because each of us has a lot more power than we think we do. And a matter of really making a contribution. I was raised by a dad that asked me every night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? He's been gone close to 20 years. But I still ask myself that. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we all focused on adding value to other people's lives? But the second cause to pause for me is as I said, I turned 70 in January. So last year I was like really depressed, not looking forward to it. And a friend of mine said, Sharon, you're not turning 70, you're turning Sharon 7.0. I like that.
Yes,
all right.
I like
so,
that.
But it also was a learning opportunity, because I look at my life and I go, I have a whole lot more runway behind me than in front of me. And so how do I want to live my life? I know that I've established a legacy with everything that I've done and the financial education. I know I've made an impact on the world. Right now, I want to focus on how am I leaving an impact on my family. So I'm much more probably introverted, much more looking at how can I create that value and those memories for my family before I go to the next plane. So,
wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think sometimes we focus so hard as entrepreneurs on growing our business that we neglect our family, or we neglect our vitality. One of the things I love with
hard to find too many billionaires that are still married to the same wife they started out with. And that's part of it, is the fact that they do focus so much on building their empires that their family and their health suffers. And so it's like, in Think and Grow Rich for Women, I have a chapter called One Big Life, understanding, I've made decisions in my life that cost me money, but they were for the benefit of my family, and I don't regret a single one of them. So what choices are you making as it relates to every aspect of your life?
Wow. This reminds me of one of the choices that I made early on in my marriage with my wife. We have such a successful marriage because from day one, we said, we're not going to joke about divorce. We don't. Other people are joking about it. We don't, because we're fully committed. And if I'm 100% and she's 100%, we absolutely can know we're committed. People that get divorced and people that have, a great relationship, they typically often have the same type of problems. So for us, we focus on being willing to stay committed. It looked like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, I like the fact that you did that. And that's, for me, I think that's a generational thing. I think your generation divorce is just like talked about a lot more. And it's like, I've never even considered divorce because we made a commitment to mother. We just celebrated 44 years together. But I think it's really important. And people always ask me, what's the secret to your long marriage? And it's really, you have to respect your spouse even more than you love them, because there are days when the love gets challenged and the respect gets up. And understanding that you can't change somebody else. You can only change how you react to them. And that level of commitment that you've just expressed with your wife is very important. And I see it missing in so many different, because they think, they can easily get out of it. And I think it's really important to make that commitment and to have shared values and to maintain the communication lines and not go into your own separate worlds.
Yeah, open lines of communication, that is so important. Now, my word for this year, because I always choose a word for the year is guanxi, which is creating relationships in a system of communication. That word in Mandarin means a lot to me, and it's gotten deeper and deeper, that power of association, as I've been focusing on this. And I wanted to ask what one networking tip that you would give to someone to go and kind of get into doors that they normally wouldn't. What are some of those ways that you've been able to level up your associations and get into rooms where you are not the smartest person in the room or the wealthiest, but you're able to elevate yourself?
Well, one of the things my husband and I, as I said, we do high level mentoring. We host mentoring retreats at our ranch here in Arizona. So when people are just starting out, I go, they go, I don't know any rich people. I don't know any people that can open doors for me. And I go, well, do you have a cause that you believe in? Volunteer at a charity. If you become volunteer at a charity, people get to know you. You're going to meet the donors, the heavy hitters. And that's going to give you the opportunity to know who they are. You've got a shared passion. You both want to support this organization. And all of a sudden, you're in the company of the kind of people who will challenge you. But you need to make that contribution. Again, earn the right. Be there. Make a contribution. Get on the board. And all of a sudden, you're sitting on the board next to the people that you aspire to be. And that's a beautiful way for you to create those associations. And join a networking group in your community where there are people that are more successful than you there, and you can learn from them and you can associate with them and just soak up the knowledge that's being shared.
Wow. That is sage advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. In the last moments we have together, would you mind sharing your why not story? This is one that has impacted me every time I've heard it. And I think people that haven't heard this, that kind of get stuck on their purpose, I would love to hear your perspective on why not become the authority.
Sure, absolutely. I grew up in a very lower middle class home. Neither one of my parents had high school diplomas. So I was absolutely determined I was going to be the first generation to go to college. I was the only woman in my accounting classes, one of the only few women in business. And when I started my career in public accounting, I was one of the very first women in public accounting. So I definitely was a trailblazer. And about the ripe old age of 25, now understand, my parents, who didn't have the high school education, owned a beauty salon, owned a used car lot. We owned rental real estate, orange groves, and we talked about money at home. But at 25, I was out living the life as a CPA in Atlanta, Georgia, having a great time, but I had no control over my life. I was working incredibly long hours. And one of my clients offered me to go with him into a company that he was buying out of bankruptcy. And it was like, own a piece of the rock. So I went back to my condo because this was before PCs, this was before cell phones. And it was 1979. And so I go back to my condo and I use the old yellow legal pad, did pros and cons. And it didn't help me a bit because I was very successful in my career. My goal was to stay there, become partner and retire, right? And then I had this opportunity to go into the unknown, but own a piece of it as an owner. And so my hand, I could argue both sides, but my hand took off and wrote across the top of the page, why not? Why not do something different? Why not take the road less traveled? Why not own a piece of the rock? Why not experience something? Why not solve a problem or serve a need? And so I made the decision to leave. And that philosophy, why not, is still my philosophy today. As much as my passion on financial literacy, my why not. That's why I challenge people. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And people, I go, why not? Why not force yourself to do something different? Because that's where the opportunity is. The opportunity is outside your comfort zone every single time. So you have to step outside your comfort zone to just discover that. And so, yes, that was my philosophy from the age of 25, and it's still my philosophy today.
And I love it. Thank you so much for pouring that fabulous energy into the audience, sharing your insights, your wisdoms, all of the reasons to say, why not? Why not go after your dreams? Why not do the things that you need to level up your life, your associations, and go after the things that you hold most dear? Where can people find your success equation? I know there's a website that they can go to. Send them there. Yeah.
Personalsuccessequation.com.
Perfect.
And then you can also go to SharonLechter.com. I'd love for everybody to connect with me, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. But SharonLechter.com, there's also a link there to get to the personal success equation.
Yeah, it is a very good ebook. I've gone through it. It's phenomenal. And it also in multiple facets and different books in different ways. So
it's not about my personal success.
So good. All right. It's everybody's, right?
Right, your personal success equation, because we all have one. And, I like to cap it by saying you are the CEO of your life. Nobody else can make decisions for you. And so you, again, make the choices to get you the life you deserve, because God made you perfect. He made you to be you, not me, not Brigham, you. And you have all the skills, all the opportunity to create the success that you deserve.
Wonderful. Well, Sharon, thank you so much. That was a great capstone, little cherry on top. Thank you so much. It has been an absolute delight to be around you today and to associate. So God bless and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, my guys. Pleasure. Don't forget, you're fabulous.
Yes. Yes, you are. God bless.